Shalom again, brothers and sisters. This is Yadon. This is Yadon here. Ras Ayadonis Safari here. LOJ. Rastafari Jews here. This is like the part two because we had a little bit more to the first part. The Super Bowl. Super Bowl, is it the Super Bowl, right? Or the Stupid Bowl, right? Bread and circuses. The bread and circuses, the bread and games. Games to distract the masses. Right, games to distract the masses. Now, here there's a little part two to it, right? Because I touched on many of the points, but there was a couple of summary points. So here, this is like kind of part two, but we'll try to style it as maybe another, another related subject matter, because we didn't address really the symbolic, the symbolism. Because a lot of people were reading a lot of symbolism, into what we and what not we, but many people were seeing, what they saw in Kendrick Lamar's, in his performance, So they were looking at the different symbolisms and so forth and so on. Now, we already touched on what Juvenile said, about bread and circuses, like give them bread and circuses to distract them. But we're looking at it as a distraction, as a sort of the same thing that Rome did, because Rome is, Greece and Rome, the Greco-Roman times of Greece and Rome, and not even to get prophetically or in the scriptures, but it pans out, even biblically, right? Some people might say they might not have a belief in God, the God of the Hebrews or the Bible, so forth and so on, but it really pans out, right? But here, just approaching it from the way that I think most people can get it, right? Let's touch a little bit more on this, the Super Bowl, right? The bread and circuses, the symbolism, the symbolic. I really want to call this symbolic Babylon, but I'm not going to go deep in a lot of the symbolism. There's a lot of symbolism, and there's a lot of other people who are, giving their views. Some of what they say is very interesting, what they see into it, right? But plays, right? Farces, spectacles, gladiators, strange beasts, medals, pictures, and other such opiates. Isn't this interesting? Ain't nothing new under the sun. They're still human beings, and human beings are still subject to certain influences, right? And can be influenced through certain distractions. The plays, the farces, the spectacles, the gladiators, strange beasts, strange things, medals, pictures, other such opiates. Opiate, the opiate, there's a whole opiate crisis, right? Right? These were for ancient peoples the bait, right? The bait. Like bait, like you're baiting somebody. The bait towards slavery. Now, we're not saying the slavery in some of its older archaic forms, but they take the chain off of, the hands and the feet, and they put it on the hearts and the minds. So it's a new form of chains. It's still the chains. It's still a bondage. It's still an enslavement, slavery, right? Slavishly, right? The price of their liberty. The instruments of tyranny. One would not think that entertainment, plays, farces, spectacles, gladiators, strange beasts, medals, pictures, and are opiates, are actually drugs. But in observing, from some of the videos shared with me, different, reactions, responses, breakdowns. I mean, some people were like, "This is like almost like, wow, it's such a great thing," right? And to me, this is just typical. Right, this is just the same old, but in a different way, right? Remember that the bread circuses before were free; they were free, and even today, right now I can go and I can look at the whole Super Bowl thing. It's out there, right? I can watch it, just like the people who went and paid for it, right? So most people who are checking it out didn't go out to the game, but they basically saw the game on TV, right? The bread and the circus, and they probably, had some bread, while they watched it, bread and circus, right? Panem, right? Et Circenses, or Circenses, right? Circenses, right? Of course, Caesar, he would not have recognized the name Caesar, because it was Kaiser, right? The C has a K sound, right? Think about it. Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar. So somebody mentioned the Squid Game, actually in Kendrick Lamar's, in his halftime performance, that there was a Squid Game, right? Somebody saw that there was some game that people would be playing today, on some of these gaming platforms, and it's called the Squid Game, right? The bread and circus, the what? The what? The bread and circus of today. And that was a part of what was in Kendrick Lamar's performance. Now, some think that it was the greatest, like almost like a kind of a second coming, so to speak. I say that to say, like it's almost like a religious, right, motivation. Although people are not looking at it so religious, some people may read into it certain religious, right? Knowing that Kendrick Lamar, the whole Israelite stance, so forth and so on. And we recall, how, even previously, his things went viral, right, and kind of caught up the chatter. The chatter was just almost full, especially in certain spheres of social media, right, like the black sphere, so to speak, where black people, where we discuss, you know what I mean, because black people are the target, so the bread and circus, right, the bread and the circus, the gladiatorial, and social media is basically becoming a kind of a bread and circus too. Right? Now, we're saying this, not saying, oh, whoa, you can't look at it, but you have to be aware. Most people are not aware, or most people kind of shut off their awareness, right? Because if you say it, it bothers. I'm sure some people be bothered by this. But here's what I wanted to touch on, right? The so-called protocols, right? The protocols of learned elders. It's something that they said. They said, let the people talk themselves silly. There's a part in the protocols. I got to find the exact protocol, but it says, like, let the people, talk themselves silly. And I can't not think about that when I witness what I witness often in social media, especially around these subject matters that become viral. I mean, there's other news stories that's going on. In fact, my sister said, hey, check this out, right? I don't know if you know that, there's a Michigan attorney general who said the 17-year-old Rayvon Shaheed had pulled a gun, but he actually had a cell phone. It's almost like a Trayvon situation, but it doesn't seem to be stimulating anything in social media as before. They found a fix for that. Remember before, with social media, we had the internet, even with the George Floyd situation, and how that was, I think it was engineered too, but there was some kind of a spontaneous, from a kind of a grassroots level with the Trayvon, and seeing what people seen and witnessed. The way this man, this young boy, this young black male, he wasn't black male. Think about that, right? He was not, armed, and yet he was shot down, like preferably like a dog. Now we're not co-signing the protocols or whatnot like that, but we're saying how interesting it is, right? And here's the thing. I think that maybe there is a fakery to the whole protocols of Zion thing. But even how fake things become real. We live in a world where even that which is a lie becomes true, right? Even the lie kind of gets a life of its own and will not die, right? The lie becomes, alive, and it will not die. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to get unalived. Why? Because it lives in people's hearts and minds, right? So, in speaking about this right here, I wanted to mention this because from what I observed from actually reading the book, there are some things that I highlight, and I say, how interesting. This line right here, right, seems to be something that is a repeated truth, right? That people will discuss themselves silly. And this actually says that we will get the people to discuss themselves silly, right? Every possible point of view, so forth and so on. But while people are discussing themselves silly, right, what do? They are taking the opportunity, right, of people discussing themselves silly, thinking, okay, I got it. This is what it's about, right? And then, making people believe, or people get to believe that they right there, and then the next guy comes along and say, no, you got it wrong. It's really about this. And then the people begin to think, wow, there's something here, right? And while they focus so much on that which is there, they kind of miss, It's like, what does the Bible say? They strain the eye, right? They strain the eye at a gnat, like at something very, very small, right? But they swallow right? They swallow a whole camel, right? They swallow a whole camel. So is it historically fake? Is it a forgery? Hey, some of what I've read, leads me to believe that there is fakery. But then there is some even truth in the alleged lie, right? Maybe it's just human nature. Maybe that's what it is, right? But it's something. So, right, the history of a lie, right? The history of a lie. But let me ask you, do people move according to the truth? Right, in reality, do you see people move in a mass? Not all, but many people. It seems like they move to lie, right? It's like the lie is believed as the truth, right? So I wanted to share that there because on the whole protocols of the learned elders of Zion, there's some things that are said there that just popularly speaking, what is called like the goyim, the peoples, the nations, it kind of catches them up, like the bread and circus, right? And the bread and circus. I even know ones who are Israelites. They say but they love the sports and they get all into the sports, they're all into the game, so forth and so on. And it's just sports, it's just a game, entertainment, so forth and so on. But then I can't help to go back to the origin of it, right? And we talked about the origin of it, and the origin of it was what? It was ancient Rome, right? Remember the people who crucified. It says that the Antichrist will come from the people who crucified Christ. Right? So question, who crucified Christ? Most people say the Jews crucified Christ, right? Yes, they hired out, right? The Romans did it. So that's where, that's a whole different subject matter right there, about who crucified Christ right there. But the right answer is that the Antichrist, it said, will come from the same people that crucified Christ, and the people that crucified Christ was the Romans. It was the Romans, right? It was the Roman Empire. In fact, if you know the biblical prophecy, right, it speaks about, right, that there would be this kind of like Esau, red Esau, because Judaically, right, the one who is known as Esau, right, according to the Judaic view, right, was Rome, right? And remember, it's from Rome that we get the whole bread and circus, right? The bread and circus. As it says right there, give them bread circuses and they will never revolt, right? But what's so interesting now is that people are reading into the bread and circus, right? Elements, symbolism, right? I call it symbolic Babylon, right? And Babylon means confusion. So it's symbolic confusion, right? People reading it, well, this means that, well, that means that, and this is what's going to happen, so forth and so on. And whether it does or doesn't happen, it still catches people up, right? It kind of distracts the thought, right? Well, we watch, grown men, making a whole bunch of money, good for them and their families if it can be beneficial, run around. And then we get Kendrick Lamar, right? Kendrick Lamar right here is like the circus. It's talking about the ringleader, like the one who is like the lion tamer, so to speak, right? Now, like I said, the whole Kendrick Lamar, Drake thing, there's some others who have been putting me up on certain things that I wasn't really so much aware of. But as I said before, symbolism, right? Is this symbolic Babylon? I mean, what does this really mean? As I said in the first vlog, I said that what most don't really recognize is that these colors, like the red, white, and blue, right, just for the Israelites and from an Israelite perspective, are the same primary colors that we find in the tabernacle. That means the Israelites would have known these particular colors, but for a different reason. So now we, once lost, now found, we know these colors, right, but not understanding or not connecting the fact that these are the same colors, the whole red, white, and blue, that we find in the Hebrew commodities, right, of the different elements, the silver, the gold, the brass, when the tabernacle was being made, but also the symbolic colors, right, the red, the crimson, the red, the white, white linen, and also the blue, like the fringes, the blue, you know what I'm saying? So these are primary colors right here, right? So one would not think that if this Babylon, symbolic Babylon, and we're not saying it's not, this Sodom and Egypt as revelation spiritually, right? In the spirit, for ones who are spiritual can see, Right? Ones who are not don't really make that connection. So some people may not see the connection, and we just go what the scripture says because the carnal man, the fleshy man, the man of the flesh, like the one of Esau, who has the Esau mentality, right? Whether he is Jake or not, he's not going to be able to see this, right? But these colors right here, right? These colors right here, right, are tabernacle colors right here. So think about that, right? The best sort of trap to trap somebody is to use something of their own, right? Like to use something of yourself to trap you because you are in a state of ignorance. You have a zeal, right? Like it says, you have a zeal, but it's not according to knowledge, So ones are very zealous in a lot of the different interpretations of it, but it's like, how much do we really know, right? And are we just talking ourselves silly, right? Are we talking ourselves silly, right? Concerning the Super Bowl or the Stupid Bowl? Tell me what you think, some comments, like, share, subscribe, give thanks, brothers and sisters, and also others right here. But as far as entertainment go, if you can just view the entertainment, right, but don't let the entertainment, become an entanglement and get you too caught up. You know what I mean? Because after all, it's a show. Ain't it a show? Right? It's a show. That's what they call it. It's show business. Right? But we walk by what? Faith, right? But not by sight. It's not just what we see, right? Because seeing is believing. No, seeing is not believing, right? Because why do we have to believe in something that we already see?